All right, good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great day so far. We're here with interim head coach Frank Reich. We will take questions using the raised hand feature on Zoom, and we will call on you as those come in. With some new faces on the press conference today, please use your full name and outlet when asking the question. Ben Parker, you're up first.
Hey, Coach, just to introduce others here. Ben Parker from On3 Rivals here. For you, kind of what was kind of the main things you both been emphasizing with the team uh, during the bye week here that you guys just had?
Yeah, a couple things, Ben. Get better at football, right? It's a bye week, but it's the big game, and we're in preparation mode. It was reduced physical work, but still the same focus and intensity with the work that we did. Shorter practices, but intense practices. Tightening things up schematically about what we're doing, what adjustments we want to make for this coming up game, and then also getting guys healthy and fresh and coming in fully ready for this week.
Thank you, Ben. Steve?
Yeah. Frank, Steve Croner from the San Francisco Chronicle. I don't mean this, it's a two-part question. In the first part, I certainly don't mean it to be flippant, but for those of us on the West Coast and knew of the ACC rivalries, and you think of the Tobacco Road rivalries, was there a rival for Maryland? Was it Virginia, or really was there not a specific rival when you were playing at Maryland? And now that you've been at Stanford for what, 6, 7 months, what do you know about the big game rivalry that you didn't know before you got here?
Yeah, as you said, at Maryland, because of the geographic place where Maryland was in relationship to Tobacco Road, as you said, not a real hardcore rivalry. It was whoever. We were pretty good back when I was there, so it was whoever else was good at the time. Clemson, in '83 was pretty good, and then in '84, Virginia had a good year. So, but I would say at that time, no hardcore rivalry. Yeah, one of the fun parts about being here for the last 8 months has been getting to learn and know about the big game, including getting a phone call and a voicemail and an email from my old head coach, Marv Levy, who coached in the big game. And and it was great to hear his perspective on it. I've really enjoyed, just being a part of this community and realizing how big this is, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Steve. Harold?
Harold Gutman with the Bay Area News Group. First of all, sorry, what did Coach Levy have to say?
Just, I remember this was a couple weeks ago when he sent me the message, just in kind of preparation. But one of the things was he just recalled how, in the newspapers back in the day, waking up that day, and it was always the big game, how that was always going to be the headline in the paper. Today is the big game. And so the tradition and history of it, just him talking fondly of that. And, a fun point for me as, listen, I think this guy is, he's one of my football heroes. This guy is truly, obviously, an NFL Hall of Famer, 100 years old, still alive, and just an amazing person and coach. So just to get a note from him talking about the big game was pretty special.
John?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just that was a follow-up. No, my first question was just does it feel different? I know it's only Monday, but are you starting to feel, different preparation for this week?
I do. I feel, felt it at Sunday in our team meeting, in our practice on Sunday in the building. You can feel the excitement and, the spirit around this game.
Thank you, Harold. John?
John Platts, KNBR 1050, Cardinal Sports Radio Network. Frank, not every head coach is a former quarterback. You are that. Elijah Brown getting his feet wet as a starter in the college level. What are some of the things that you remember as an early starter or as a new starter, and what are some of the things that are particularly important for quarterbacks sort of in that situation?
Yeah, just getting into a rhythm. And, obviously in the last game, we struggled early to get into a rhythm. I was in the fourth quarter, we were able to do that as an offense. He was able to do that. So, we have to find a way to build on that. There's no one answer to it. Again, we always are going to say we want to be balanced. We want to have an effective running game, to take pressure off the quarterback and off the O-line, slow down a pass rush that way. But we also need to be able to be effective in the pass game. And then, as always, right? I mean, as a quarterback, ultimately, it's going to come down to, how productive are we on critical situations, third down, red zone, those type of situations, to stay on the field, to get touchdowns rather than field goals. So, we're continuing to fine tune and, work on, how we can be most effective in those situations.
Back to Harold.
I don't believe anyone on this year's roster has actually beaten Cal in the big game. Not that you need any additional motivation, for a rivalry game, but does that come up at all, or do you sense that from the team?
No, I do sense, I think everybody understands, the dry spell, and sure, that's motivation, and it's big motivation. So, motivation is great, but really what it has to lead to, that motivation has to lead to enhanced preparation. You just can't turn that emotion on Saturday, and expect to get what you want. The increased motivation has to come into play during the week, when we're in meetings, when we're on the practice field. And that's what we're shooting for.
Jeff?
Yeah, this is Jeff Ferrato with Cal Bears on SI. Frank, I wonder if you could give us your evaluation of Cal's freshman quarterback, Jaron Kawave Sagapolitelli.
Well, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, with all due respect to him. And I'll tell you what, he's fun to watch on tape. Can get the ball all over the field. Talking with our guys, understand just from a statistical standpoint, I believe he's leading all freshman quarterbacks in yards, has a bunch of touchdown passes, just a really good player. You can see, he can find a rhythm, and, when he finds that rhythm, he's dangerous. So, good test for our defense. I think our defense has been playing pretty well. We do a good job, I think, in disguise and mixing things up. And that's going to be critically important, this week against their offense. I think when in their last game against Louisville, they had things humming pretty well. And so, they're coming off of a high as far as an offensive performance. And, I'm sure they want to continue with that same rhythm and production. And, obviously our defense, we're just going to aim to try to break that rhythm, be effective on first down, get them behind the sticks as much as we can, and play ball from there.
If I can ask a quick follow-up, what's the hardest thing for a freshman coming in from high school, becoming a starting quarterback right off the bat, and how's he doing in those kinds of areas?
I just think, listen, obviously I'm new to the college scene, but just understanding quarterbacks of all levels and being around them at all levels in camps and different things over the years, working guys out, working with kids on the side. I just think there's an emotional maturity that you need to be able to make that transition and to play as a true freshman. The one physical talent is one thing. You go to the school, you go to an ACC school, you got the physical talent to play the position. But it's about emotional maturity, being able to handle the ups and downs, the grind of a season, the grind of preparation day in and day out. So, certainly give him a lot of credit.
Thank you.
Steve Kroner?
Yeah, Frank, at the beginning of the season, before the season, you were saying, I'm paraphrasing, but pretty close, that, you were hoping that the record would show the progress, but you weren't guaranteeing that it would. 10 games into the season, your record, I'm sure, is not what you want it to be. But do you, in your self-belief, believe that no matter what happens in the final two games, whether you finish 3-9, 4-8, and 5-7, that you have made progress and that the program is in a better spot than it was at the end of March?
Yeah, I'm very confident that that's the case. And obviously not for a lot of reasons. A lot of people, starting with Andrew Luck, first and foremost, starting with our players, secondly, starting with the great job that this current coaching staff did in a very tough and difficult situation for them. And then, like I said before, most of the credit goes to the players. Players in a tough position, getting an interim head coach and, a lot of uncertainty, but just them committing and seeing the progress that we've made, on the field, and just the culture that those guys have, created and continued to build, the leadership that we've gotten from those guys, like a Sam Roush and a Colin Wright, our captains, and there's a lot of other guys as well. So, and we still got 2 games left. We still got 2 games left. So, are we happy where we're at? No, we're not. But we still have two opportunities left, and we aim to try to take full advantage of those opportunities.
Ben Parker?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, kind of come out the bye, just kind of generally, health wise, how are you guys feeling right now?
Great. Feeling good. Team is relatively healthy. I think even going into our last game, we were, as a percentage of guys available, we were, it was a very high percentage for us. And it was not only high for us, I think it was high percentage for, around the ACC. So good job by our players, our training staff, our strength staff of, getting guys ready. And so excited that we're at a pretty healthy spot at this point in the year.
Thank you, Ben. John?
Frank, your snapshot of the Cal defense, who stands out to you on tape?
Yeah, I mean, good defense. Obviously, Coach Wilcox, a very long and successful record as a defensive coach. Very multiple, very, schematically very sound. Traditionally, they've always had really great players in the back end. Obviously, we know last year those guys all going to the league, and you can see how well coached they are on tape. You really can. You can see how their secondary plays. I feel like I'm watching an NFL defensive scheme. The way they're coached, I can just from having looked at tape a long time and seeing the way their DBs are playing, I can see how well coached they are. And then listen, they got good players in all 3 levels. I mean, up front, they're inside their nose tackle, number 47. He's a handful, right? He's a handful. He gets good penetration. He's a run stuffer. He's a good player. Obviously the linebacker, number 0. Really good player. He gets downhill fast. He's physical. He can run. In secondary, again, there's good players all over their defense, but in secondary, I think number 20, the boundary safety sticks out. I mean, he's a playmaker. He's got a nose for the ball. So, good defense, really well coached defense, and a difficult scheme to go against.
Troy?
Yeah, Troy Clarity, Cardinal Sports Network from Learfield. We've seen him on special teams in a couple of games against Virginia and again last week, but I don't think Chris Davis has seen an offensive snap so far this season. How's it been going for him this year?
Yeah, Chris, really good player, really explosive. Obviously had some injury issues, for a large part of the beginning of the season. And we just love we love the running back room, and Mike has been so strong. Cole's had a good year. Said, has been number 3, and then, Champ has gotten a couple carries. So there's not enough carries to go around in that room. I think if CD had not kind of got behind the 8 ball with the injuries, I think that hurt a little bit. And then it's just kind of hard to break that depth chart, based on the fact that that room has been so strong.
Ben Parker?
Going back to the Cal defense, you have a player on your team that was a part of that defense for 4 years, or 3 or 4 years, Hunter Barth. Just talk about what he's been able to tell you about Cal's defense, and also just kind of what he's been able to kind of share about his big game experiences and how meaningful this weekend is to him. Yeah, just having that aspect of things.
Well, first of all, I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure to have him on the team. I mean, he's from day one, he's really assimilated, into our culture and into our scheme, has made an immediate impact played a lot of football for us and played good football for us. And so really happy to have him. Listen, I think we might have talked about this, generally speaking, one time earlier in the year. Will I talk to him in detail about a few things? Yeah, but like I don't go too far down that road. I end up, my experience is it can be more of a distraction than anything else. So I know it's hard. It's got to be hard for him. I've been on teams and then switched teams that were rival, that kind of thing. So, my only counsel is every player's got to deal with it in their own way, but just stay focused on doing your job. Try not to make a big deal about it. Get the emotion of the kind of strange circumstances out of the way and just focus on playing football. And as far as him, we'll talk to him about their personnel. What does he think? We've talked to him about that kind of stuff. And what do you think about these players? And, we see him on tape. We know these guys pretty well already. So a lot of times he might just confirm some things we're already thinking. And, schematically, we dive a little bit into it, but not too deep.
Steve?
Frank, traditionally, and this could be more lore than it is fact, but traditionally there's the thought that in rivalry games, coaches are more inclined to use gadget plays. And there's also the thought when you have a bye week, that gives you that much more time to put in gadget plays. Well, you've had a bye week and you're playing a rivalry game. Now, I'm not going to ask you to tell me which 3 or 4 gadget plays you've got in your pocket, but is that a fair assessment that might be more likely for both you and Cal, or is it kind of an old wives' tale?
No, I think there's something to it. And, sometimes it's gadgets. Sometimes it could just be more wrinkles in what you're doing in your scheme. Any of the 3 phases of the game. It might not be a dramatic gadget play, but you might have a few more plays that complement or counter things that look like what you've done to try to keep it. You try to do that every week, but with the big game, with the bye week, do we get a little bit of extra time? Yes, we do, and probably a little bit of extra work there. You, of course, do have to guard against trying to do too much, and so we want to be careful of that as well. Have a little bit of healthy tension between the two.
John?
Coach, nine sacks against Stanford in the most recent game a couple weeks ago. I know it's something you're working on shoring up. How much of that is on the offensive line? How much of that is on the quarterback, escaping and getting rid of it? I know in the NFL it's a different level. And then more generally, the offensive line status. Are you still kind of working through position situations there? What's the status on that is the second part of the question.
Yeah, I think to the first part, it's complicated and complex. I mean, in the last game, particularly in the last game, we went into that Carolina game that they were particularly good at stunting and, line games. And so, and then their game plan against us was to do very little of that. And so, and not as a result, but some of the sacks that we gave up were just losing one-on-one battles. It wasn't a pick or a stunt or a game. It was just we lost a couple one-on-one battles. But listen, that happens every week in college football, in the NFL, where offensive linemen lose one-on-one battles, and a little bit of it has to be incumbent upon the quarterback sometimes to make one guy miss or still to get the ball out in time. And so that's where we don't look at it as a finger pointing. Well, hey, that's your fault. Hey, we want to be good on our fundamentals and technique, on how we pass set, on how we execute in the pass game. We look at that as a collective stat. Those sacks are a collective stat that we're always working on, and we got to do a better job on.
Any other questions for Coach? All right, thank you so much. We hope to see you on our press conference tomorrow with our captains.